Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Don't answer all at once.
Good, Mike. How you doing?
Good. Good. Good as can be, right? So, John, I got your email. We'll see if we're gonna actually have a quorum this time.
Yeah, it's looking good so far, so maybe we can move forward on this, I hope.
Okay. Yeah, we got a pretty full agenda too to get through, so hopefully everybody gets to go and join us here.
Well, I'll move through it really fast. We talked a little bit about it last time, and so I don't need a lot of time, Mike.
Okay, well, we'll get to you.
Okay.
Give it a few minutes and I'll get it started. Hmm. Rebecca, do we have anybody that non-panelists?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Well, we won't even be able to approve the minutes with the number we have right now, so.
Not, we have a quorum, Mike. We have, I think, 10 voting members out of 17.
Oh, am I not seeing them all? I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. Well, my viewpoint, it wasn't getting everybody. It looks like we do now. Okay, I'm gonna get us underway because we have quite an agenda going on today. So welcome to the September 10th Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council. As always, this is a public meeting. We give them public an opportunity to speak. So we'll take the first few minutes, up to 3 minutes, however long it takes, 15 minutes to make sure that everybody has a chance to comment. So here's the script. Greetings, everyone. Today's SRLJC meeting will begin with public comment for up to 15 minutes. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute limit per individual. Speakers should address the matters which are within the powers of the duties of the SRLJC. Excuse me. Speakers should also identify themselves and address the chair. Council members will not engage in the dialogue with the speakers. If you would like to comment and have not done so already, please send a chat message to Rebecca and she will give you a speaker number and announce when it's your turn to speak. So we will start there. We see anything yet, Rebecca?
We just have one guest. It's Nisi Jones. So Nisi, if you want to raise your hand or shoot a message so I can promote you. Otherwise, I think that's it.
Okay, well, we can start with that. Rebecca, I'm sorry, did you say she had a comment or she did not? have a-
No, I don't see any raised hands or
Okay.
messages.
right.
So I think if we do second and third call, and then we can move on.
Okay. So I'll give it one more minute and then I will close the public forum and then we'll move on to our agenda. Okay, final last call for any public comments. If not, I will wrap up the forum. Rebecca, do we have anyone else?
No, no one else.
Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. First, we'll start with the May 14th, 2025 SRLJC minutes for approval. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes for the May meeting.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the next order of business, which is the July 9th, 2025 SRLJC minutes for approval. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for the July meeting.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, Tim.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, both carry forward unanimously. And we'll move on to the next business. Rebecca, do we have our visitors for the SIM report?
Yes, I see Ashley Carter is on.
Hi, Mike. Do you want me to just take it away?
No, let me give
Okay.
you an announcement. Ashley is the Assistant Director of Public Policy and Research, which she has worked since 2012, providing strategic direction, project management, subject matter expert across multiple national initiatives, advancing the criminal justice reform, behavioral health systems change, cross-sector collaboration. Prior to joining the policy research, she held a position in state government, which focused on forensics health. If you don't recognize Ashley, she is the one that headed up our SIMs when we had conducted our SIMs. And today she's going to be covering some of the topics, the mapping, the crossover, or the crosswalk from prior initiatives, some next steps where we go. And then we're going to take a minute to talk about some formation of some subgroups to focus on the priorities as have been laid out in this presentation. So without further ado, is Reggie going to join us, Ashley?
No, it'll just be me today.
Okay, take it away, Ashley.
All right. Thanks very much, Mike. And hello, everyone. I recognize many of you from the sequential intercept mapping earlier this year, but hello to everyone. If you weren't there, you should be able to see my screen. Yep. Okay. Let me make sure the slides are up. So as Mike said, I work for Policy Research Associates, and our nonprofit arm, PRI, Policy Research Inc., was responsible for conducting the sequential intercept mapping earlier this year, as well as the one back in 2018. So what I would like to do today is to, as Mike said, give a bit of a recap from a pretty high level as far as the SIM process and the outcomes from the mapping, but also I think vitally tie it into pre-existing work that Spokane County had already been doing, even certainly before we were there in 2018 to do the first mapping. As well as some of the parallel work happening at the city level. So that's what I'm going to do today, and then certainly should have plenty of time for any questions or any feedback. And feel free to put items in the chat if they come up over the next few moments. So as I said, Policy Research Inc. is our nonprofit arm, and we're funded by the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge to provide behavioral health focused technical assistance to any of the SJC sites. There are over 100 of them now, mostly counties that are all working to reduce local jail overpopulations and unnecessary incarceration. And our sort of crux point there is with folks with behavioral health needs, so mental health and or substance use, who are either in contact with the criminal justice system already or are at risk of involvement, looking at earlier sorts of deflection and intervention. And we provide technical assistance across the country around a lot of initiatives, again, mostly focused on that population of adults with behavioral health and criminal justice system needs. So we developed the SIM model at PRA as a framework for much of our technical assistance. And if you're not familiar, it's made up with these 6 intercepts. And it's really just a framework to illustrate how people can move through the criminal justice system or those different intercepts in at least semi-predictable ways. You know, we recognize the differences there and how folks might flow through and the different pieces they might come in contact with, but using it as a framework allows us to have some commonality as well as to help increase just understanding of how the intercept or the part of the system in which each individual works potentially influences all of the other intercepts. So trying to draw some common framework and understanding there. This also helps us see where there can be deflection or diversion points into community-based services, hopefully away from the criminal justice system when appropriate, into treatment and all of that. So again, it's a model used as a framework to help map the flow of someone through local criminal justice systems. And that's what we've done a couple of times now in Spokane County. So our work, most of my discussion today will focus on the March 2025 mapping, but I also want to connect it to the pre-existing work, as I said, that the county has been doing. Much of it we've been a part of, but certainly outside of our work as well. So our formal involvement with Spokane County began with their 2018 SIM mapping, and my colleague Regina Herder was the lead facilitator of that event. This is the map that was created through that mapping if you haven't seen it, and I'll include anything that I show or discuss that hasn't been sent already. I'll make sure you all get that after today's meeting. So this was a very similar process to what we did earlier this year. There is a formal map and a full report that are products of each SIM mapping. So again, same thing this year. This is the March 2025 map. And again, if you haven't seen it and the full report already, we'll make sure you get it. But we really built on the work in 2018 and since 2018 to help facilitate this mapping update. And we worked with Mike and his team to organize the planning and invitation and registration processes. And he and Commissioner Jordan provided opening remarks when we were out there in March. So as I said, there is also a full report in addition to the map that has all of the gaps and all of the resources that were discussed during the mapping process. It was a 1.5-day process, and the report has much more detail in it than I'll cover today. But this is one of the resulting products. So through the mapping discussion, and especially the focus on gaps, on those pieces that maybe aren't working well or aren't working as well as we want them to be at each of these intercepts, the attendees start to identify what their top priorities are, both in regards to gaps, but also particularly through our action planning process, which is that second half day of the mapping. So at the conclusion of the mapping process, we talked with the group that was there around top gaps. What are your top priorities? And the group decided on this list. So this was, again, fully facilitated from the group of attendees that were in the room. And we had a voting process so that these priorities get ranked. Again, all of this is fully documented in the report. But I wanted to highlight, across several of these priorities really is this desire for coordination across agencies or coordination across systems. And that was really a theme that was echoed a lot through the mapping process. And it was also a goal of us coming back out there and recognizing this parallel efforts that are happening within the city and county around this population. So after the priorities were identified, were voted on, as I said, that second half day of the sim, we do action planning. So we broke into 5 action planning groups based on these top 5 priorities, and worked with all of those groups to identify some more specific objectives and action steps within each of these priority groups, as well as adding some specific timelines, identifying who is responsible for moving some of these steps forward. We're trying to get more concrete, more practical, so that when we left the county, there would be some activity already, and that this would all be very much a living, working process. That it wouldn't just be a report that gets shelved, but that this would be an actionable, again, very concrete process. So that's where we left in March. And as I said already, we were conscious of a parallel effort from the city of Spokane's 2024 mapping led by the deputy city administrator. We saw those products. We were aware of the priorities identified, and you'll see those on your screen here. I know you've already seen them. And so we were conscious of not just the effort generally, but also the priorities that rose out of that work. And indeed, a lot of them had overlap again with what was identified at the county level. And that was not surprising, but really, again, echoed the need for this increased collaboration between city and county efforts. And there were even some specific priorities, we've got them in yellow here, that were identified during the city mapping that also aligned with specific items identified at the county sim workshop. So one of the ways that we highlighted this in our report is to include a crosswalk of identified top priorities from both of our 2018 and 2025 county level workshops. Those first are the middle 2 columns really, and then also the city's 2024 mapping. So those 3 middle columns. And we were clear, obviously, that the Spokane County mapping this year didn't take place in isolation, but that there were these multiple previous and current sort of buckets of similar or parallel work. And again, emphasizing that need for coordination and communication, and hopefully reducing duplication of efforts as well. So we created this chart. This is just the first page of it. I'll show the second page in just a second. But we broke it out by somewhat by intercept, although there's some, especially in the next page, that are some of the priority areas are kind of cross-intercept, more topical focuses. But within each of those, we articulated the priorities from each of these 3 events that were highly ranked. The items in bold are those top priorities on the list. And then also in orange, all the way to the right, what are the major efforts to address since those events and kind of currently now? And we are confident that that is not an exhaustive list. So I'm sure there's more happening across the city and county than we were even aware of in orange. So again, this was meant to be a very sort of living, working, useful piece, and hopefully a good jumping off point to increase some of that collaboration and coordination. This is the second page of that crosswalk. So you can see that we separated out the items and the initiatives by kind of major system area. You'll see the intercept specific jail, reentry, etc. But then some of the items like data and information sharing or screening and assessment are really cross-intercept focuses. So all of this to say, there's a lot more in the report and map again, and you'll have that if you don't already. But one of the additional items in our report are some recommendations from the facilitators. And the number one, the first recommendation we put in this report, but also the number one indicator of a successful sim that we see across the country is really identifying where this work lives on an ongoing basis. Again, after we leave and you all get back to your real jobs and continue to work on these initiatives. So this helped a lot with framing the report, that crosswalk, our recommendations, but I don't think we can oversell how important that piece is, that this is, again, part of a living, working process. Ideally, there would be a cross-systems work group or a task force of some sort that has both criminal justice and behavioral health community provider representation. And that's what we've seen be really successful in many of the communities where we've mapped. So sometimes that's a group that already exists and the work of the SIM and the priorities kind of get folded underneath, or other times it is perhaps a group that may or may not exist or may not have full representation that you want, and maybe there are some subcommittees that get created out of that larger group. So we've talked just a bit with Mike and his team after the SIM about what this might look like in Spokane, and I know he has some thoughts on that today. But that is about all I want to cover today as far as the overview of the mapping and its tie-in with the other work that you have already been doing. So we'll continue to be available to Spokane through the MacArthur SJC and with Mike and his team into next year. But if anyone has questions or other thoughts that come up, please feel free to reach out to me specifically as well. So I'm open for questions, Mike, or if you want to take it back from there, either way.
Let's open it up for any questions that you have for Ashley. Some of you participated in the mapping process. Ideally, I'd like for this to live with the SRLJC and for us to start establishing these groups and work collaboratively with the city of Spokane and with the other groups on pulling together something that you know, just another work group. I know that, guys, you know, but it really is important work, and I think that we could start making some progress. Some of us have already been involved with groups, and I don't know if you've stayed in touch with those groups, but we have a list of those that we could, you know, bring back up for you to look at. And so I kind of want to have it live at the SRLJC, and then you know, have a vote on whether or not you guys all approve of that, and then moving forward with next steps, addressing the priorities in establishing work groups. But I'd like to hear from Robin first. Robin, go ahead.
Yes. So first of all, Ashley, thank you for everything, both your work coming into Spokane and then that great report. And just to punctuate, there is a full report that goes along with the mapping that will be sent out within the next week to you all, of course, and then to all the other folks in Spokane County that would benefit from reading the full report, as well as being able to take a closer look at the map. Yeah, so this is a great group for working on sort of the big picture, the 50,000 feet. But it would be absolutely fantastic if there was a way to spin off a group that had some or many of you or other designated people in your office that could work on some of these tasks. And the most important gap that I see when I look at who is part of this group is we're missing the behavioral health component. So we would want to add folks to that subcommittee from the behavioral health side. And I think we have a little bit of a I don't know if I want to call it a list, but at least folks that listed on different tasks that we're interested in helping with those. That's actually in the report as well. So that can sort of be a starting place. So I just wanted to open it up to see how you all felt about that. You know, back to Ashley for any comments you have about the progress so far.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking of the group right now is if the SRLJC would be willing to have this body of work underneath us and to make progress on it. It does come in line with the blueprint of reform for one of the recommendations on mapping our process out. So we'd be able to check that box off as well. There's some other subcommittees that, you know, the community engagement one I know would be important, and this would be something that we would definitely want to share with that group too for involvement if they want to become involved with that part of it. So I would just like to make a motion that the SIMS motto falls underneath the SRLJC, and that we avail ourselves to the Board of County Commissioners and to the city administration and those that are involved to work collaboratively towards reaching some of these objectives. So I'll put it out as a motion, and I'll take a vote. Would anybody be, go ahead.
I will second it and then speak to the motion, because I agree. I have some, it's not so much concerns about this group or that. It's just that I think one of the challenges is that this group at one time was a lot broader, and then the county commissioners went through a process of removing people from the group, and without delving into the bitterness about being removed several years ago, there were reasons, there were politics for it. But I think those are mostly gone. But I just think in order for this to be effective, it needs to be broader. So we need more City of Spokane, although I note Justin and Kristen are somehow made it onto this group, even though a lot of the city was removed from it. But also Spokane Valley. I see Chief Ellis there too, so he's partly part of that. But I just think for it to be successful, it needs to be broader. And but we have years, you know, some of us have been at this table in whatever capacity for well over a decade. And I feel like our strongest and best and most effective days was when we had a bigger group and we had subgroups working on projects, and we made some great progress. And I think since we shrunk this group, it's less. So I believe in that. But the other thing I want to mention is that we have a bunch of groups right now. So we have this group, we have the community engagement leadership team that is also MacArthur related, and about half of you on this call are on that as well, plus there's a whole bunch of other people. Commissioner Jordan, I think, is just about to kick off a community stakeholder group on criminal justice reform. Its theme is to try to figure out how we might do a ballot initiative, so it has maybe a little more emphasis on facilities, but also programs to go along. And so I think we need to have kind of a meeting with all the leadership of all these groups to figure out, so that we're not going to 3 or 4 different meetings a month, and also that we could just kind of figure out a way to do it. And we could still have all the groups, but there might be a focus of who's doing what. I think this Sims work was fantastic, and Ashley, I look forward to having those slides in the report in my hands, because I really think when you really look at it, you can see the direction that we probably need to go as a community. But I think the majority of people in the community who have feelings about this, they really don't have the kind of details that are just in those very brief slides. They just don't have an idea of what's going on and what could go on. It's really more of a black and white. Do you want a bigger jail or no jail or whatever it is that's not very effective in actually solving human problems. So I support it. I seconded it. I support it, Mike. But I think there needs to be a lot more work, and I would love to have a little more commissioner and mayoral involvement in figuring out really kind of once and for all how we can structure things going forward that has enough voices from different sectors, but that there's kind of one-stop shopping, because otherwise I feel like we're all going to distract each other and the public will lose faith in us. So that's my soapbox. I will step off of it.
And that's a very valid point. We don't want to duplicate what's already going on. We want to enhance them. And I know that the Public Safety Committee is moving. They too are going to form some subgroups to take the broader range, broader topics, but they're going to need our input into those. They're going to need this input into some of the things that they're working on. And I haven't seen the list either, Brian. I don't know all of what their initiatives they're working on, but once they do, I'm sure that we're going to fit into a portion of that. And, and what better platform than this? I mean, plus we can expand, like you're saying, into the other realms, and then, in a collaborative way, you know, align those groups so that the hierarchy, you know, going up to the mayor and the board of county commissioners and down, understands where each one of those roles fit in. And I think it's just critical at this point. And Justin, did you have a comment? I saw you raise your hand for a second.
I didn't raise my hand, but no, I just think that what was said about getting people beyond the 50-foot level is important.
Mm-hmm.
If you do this work, you know, we understand overarching policies, but the mechanics, you're going to need people that are more in the mix on a daily basis. And, you know, as much as we probably all think we know how everything works, there's a lot of stuff that we only know sort of that real basic level. So I believe a lot of what Judge Begg said is correct. There's a lot of meetings and we need to really focus this. Otherwise you do get meeting fatigue in many ways. And you feel like, you know, people are just sort of at odds with one is doing this, one's doing that. So I don't know if that means that this needs to be thought about before you actually put it together. But that certainly is something that needs to be contemplated before we move forward.
Yeah, I definitely, when you read the full report, which is going to follow this, I wanted to give you guys some context up front. Some of you were involved with it, but some weren't. Some context up front before we sent the full report out, but it's done. And we'll also include the slides from today so that you have some talking points for your, you know, the folks that you meet with to kind of give them an idea of what you're thinking and what you're doing. But any other comment before I take a vote?
I have one other comment that I should have said before, but I would love it if we really got this group going, that we would hire a professional facilitator and run it like a facilitated meeting, that with the expertise of engagement of people, as opposed to our typical government way of running it, of a chair, even though that's what the chair does. But I just think that might be a change that could really help us take off and reach commonality with trust from all these different stakeholders who outside of these meetings sometimes see each other as the enemy. And I would love to bring us together, because I don't think we're going to make a big stride until we really bring folks together. So I'm just going to add that as further support of the process.
Yeah, and being the person who always has to do these meetings, I couldn't concur more, Brian. I think that's a fantastic idea. Go ahead, Robin.
I just want to echo what Justin said and really punctuate that. Sorry. There are 2 dogs walking by my house. How Nicholas, can you please help me here? Anyway, sorry about that. That things have already been decided. Like, this sim really gives us a map as to the work that the county and to some extent the city would like to do. So it's an opportunity to pick people to serve on these working groups, emphasis on the word working groups, to now get the work done. So it's a way to, you know, go beyond the leads in your organizations and potentially pick people that are more maybe not the line staff, but at least you know, middle management that can now bring things forward. It gets them involved in the process, takes a little bit of the pressure off of you all individually, and really can make a pretty substantial impact.
Yeah, and we could, I think we could even approach PRI or the MacArthur Foundation or, you know, Robin's group too, for that facilitator. What do they look like? What are the best, you know, best fit for that? So I certainly agree with that too. I honestly believe it's time. I think that there's a good effort going on, as Brian had mentioned, about the public safety, a potential, you know, initiative coming forward. We've got to make those steps now to try to close some of these gaps and start working through some of these issues and problems. Because if we don't, the last thing we want is another failed initiative because we didn't do our due diligence or do the collaboration that we should have done in the first place. So, all right, before I take a vote, is there any more comment on the motion?
Yeah, I have heard a rumor, and this has like kind of been discussed, but not as clearly, at least that I've been listening to, that there is another kind of a duplicate of this group that's being created under county commissioners. So I'm just, I guess, kind of confused at this point, like the purpose of this group, and it sounds like then it's like duplicating the work by voting on this motion. So yeah, I'm a little lost and confused.
So on the groups that are being formed under the public safety group, I'm not even sure what they are, Michelle, because they haven't come forward with an official list of what they're looking for. They haven't come together with any list of folks that are going to be involved with those programs. I've heard, bits and pieces of it myself, So what I am recommending is that this SIMS model lives somewhere. And then if it is something that we can offer up to a different group to work on, then so be it with our input. But this work has to be vetted somewhere for us to move forward. And so that's really what I'm suggesting today, Rochelle, is that we just vet it here and then give us an opportunity to work with the other groups to see where we can help. And then, bridge some of the gaps that they don't have. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've heard that then that additional group, the goal is to have community providers, specifically like victim services, mental health, behavioral health, and then to really talk about like a proposal for a jail or reconstruction of the current jail along with behavioral health services. Because it
Mhm.
sounds
Yeah.
like then this is what this conversation is as well.
Yeah, so this is a portion of that work that they're looking at, if I understand. Brian, you probably have.
Yeah,
looked
I was
at-
just gonna
yeah.
say, I think, Rochelle, the way to think about it is this group is a standing group that will continue regardless from year to year for this kind of work. That group's a ad hoc group, one-time proposal for it. So the work that we're discussing might be duplicative, but we're the ones that are going to be in place long after that group's no longer there. And so, and I don't know really what their charter is, if it's an official county group or it's just a political group that's coming together. It's a little unclear to me. But I think we would be the government entity that would be long-standing. So it makes sense to adopt this, whether we farm it out to that group on a temporary basis or something, then hard to know until they start. And I keep hearing that they're going to announce the official start any day, but they haven't yet. So we're
No.
still waiting.
Yeah, and so this one is established, like Brian's saying, by RCW. So this will be a long-standing group. It's kind of like the blueprint of reform. This group owns the blueprint of reform too as well. And, so I just wanted it to have a firm foundation and a living place to move forward with the body of work that we have to do. Okay. Okay, any more comment before I call for the vote on the motion that's on the floor? Okay. Again, I'll restate the motion just so that we can, for the clarity of the vote. I made a motion that the SIMS model work in completeness and all the other elements that we are available to us through the MacArthur and through the PRI program lives with the SRLJC to use and utilize for further conversations with the community and to, perhaps as Brian said, lend it out to some of the groups to try to bring some collaboration to the table. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries and we'll make a note of that and have that forwarded out to you all as well. We do have one, John Haley wanted to have an opportunity to talk about the racial and equity chair. And so I'd like to open it up for you, John, to go ahead and talk about that.
Thanks, Mike. I talked a little bit about it at our last meeting, but we didn't have a quorum. I wanted to bring a motion because it's been quite some time since we've had a racial equity chair which leads the racial equity committee. And so I wanted to bring that motion up and discuss it a little bit. So in the interest of time, I'm just gonna state the motion. Then we can go to discussion and I will open up the discussion. So the motion is kind of listed on our minutes from our last meeting, but I've changed it slightly. So I'll state it and then I'll state it slow so Rebecca can write it down or we can get it. So my motion is the SRLJC urgently advises the Board of County Commissioners to address the lack of a racial equity committee and a racial equity committee chairperson as directed in Spokane County Resolution 21-0458 regarding SRLJC bylaws. That's the motion.
And is
And
that,
so,
I'm sorry, didn't interrupt, but is that by letter? Is that where you were indicating, or how would that notification take place?
notification would come through the administrative office of this council. That's you, Mike.
Okay,
And so some kind of a letter from this council or, you know, verbal. I would like to see it in the form of a letter, so it's made official. And that's my thought on that. So I have some points here that I want to go over real quickly, and it won't take very long. Public safety, law and justice accounts for a very large portion of our budget. Now, it was noted in our last meeting that the clerk for the commissioners indicated that that this position is under review with other board selections. So since this council, Law and Justice Council, Law and Justice in Spokane, region of Spokane, takes up a large portion of our budget, a large portion. It's about 48% of our budget. So that tells me that there should be some kind of a priority with regarding this position. The resolution that I quoted or that I mentioned is when the county commissioners approved our bylaws, and in our bylaws we have I'll just read it to you real quick. It is Article 4 of our bylaws. Item A, the very last bullet point reads, 3 at-large members in the community, one being a victim advocate, that's Rochelle, one being an individual impacted by the criminal justice system, that's me, and one being the chair of the Racial Equity Committee. All of the at-large members shall be selected by the Board of County Commissioners. So we've been going for quite some time without a racial equity committee. And we had one for like a month and she stepped down. I don't know how many applications the commissioners have, but I would like to see them address it at a meeting in the very near future. Last meeting I mentioned how many appointments the county commissioners had made since the first of the year. And up to last month, we have 21 various board and council positions that have been appointed, 21 of them since February and through July. I'll also note that we have this MacArthur Foundation grant, which to date is right around $5 million. And I'm sure that the deliverables on that grant include racial equity. And so I think we have a responsibility to just let the county commissioners know that we need this position filled in order to satisfy our deliverables for the MacArthur grant. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it. There's much more I could say about it. I got a lot of nods at our last meeting. We didn't have a quorum, and so that's all I have to say right now, but I will answer some questions.
John, are you stating this in the way of a motion for the group to take action on?
Yes, I would like to, I would like to vote on the motion that notifies the county commissioners of the need for a racial equity chair, which then goes into a racial equity committee.
Okay. So, just for clarity, John, I want to make sure that we're voting, everyone understands what they're voting for. The vote would be, for us to, and Rebecca, are you sharing something?
I'm not, that's Rebecca sharing
Yes.
that. In my motion, I put two of them up there, and I read from the second one, the last motion there.
Mrs. Lexington, okay. And that will be the motion, to include a letter, penned by the chair or co-chair, to be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
And anyone opposed, make it known. Okay. Motion carries. I will note that as one of the motions that we addressed this in here, and I will, what I will do is work with the co-chair, with Justin Bingham, and we'll come up with a letter to craft to go forward to the Board of County Commission, expressing the opinion of the SRLJC.
Thank you. I appreciate the council's voting for this. Thanks.
Okay.
Mike, do you have a timeline of what your goal is to submit that?
I see me crafting it right away, because I would want to report out on it or hear something before the next SRLJC meeting. So, yes, I'll
Thank
get right on it. And Justin, you have time to work on this. If I just give you a phone call, we can work back
Yeah.
and forth.
I'm around. I've got a lot of meetings, but I'm in the office for the next few weeks.
Okay, why don't we catch up in a Teams meeting? We can kind of ideally get a draft of what we're going to do and send forward. So, okay. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting, unless there's anyone else that has some report outs they'd like to report out on.
I
So-
just have a request for our next meeting, if we could get an update on the implementation of the Medicaid waiver, both in the juvenile detention center, which I think is in progress, and then,
and it's going fantastic. So.
yeah, and then also the updates on the adult jail and the negotiations for new providers. And then I just wanted to throw out, it's easy for me to throw it out because it's for you and Rebecca, but it would be great if we could get a little bit of a report from Clark County has this electronic home monitoring that really emphasizes domestic violence and gives victims and survivors instant notification if the person steps outside of the geofencing. And originally there was state money to actually pay for it, but I don't think that exists anymore. But apparently, since they've put this in place, they've really had no problems with people reoffending who are on electronic home monitoring and the technology. So I don't know if you guys could talk to the Clark County and maybe somebody could give us a presentation so that we could explore feasibility of that here in Spokane at some point.
Okay. Brian, will you do me a favor and reduce that to an email? And send it
I
to
will.
us?
I
Yeah,
will.
I appreciate that. So, Tim?
Yeah, let me respond to the judge's question. So I was on the state committee for that. It's called Electronic Monitoring Victim Notification Technology System. We spent about 2 years working on what the judge is talking about. It deals with the Tiffany Hill Act. Basically, she was in a high risk situation with protection order. They kept warning that the respondent was violating repeatedly the no contact order. The police finally decided that it reached too high of a risk level, but it had already gone out and ended up killing her mother while the children were in the car. So we put legislation together on developing a program how to make that work. And that's a monitor for the respondent and a monitor for the survivor, so they can track where the respondent is going, and then they get warnings they get too close to have a chance to escape. It also sets off an alarm on the respondent, so everybody looks at them like, why is there a bell ringing on you? It also alerts police. Long story short, there were a lot of challenges to put that program together, to include funding, and we ended up leaving it at the individual counties to pursue at their level as they saw fit. So yeah, we can give a full briefing and report on that. We did a complete report. It's on courts.wa.gov on what all went on in that and where we were at. And, you know, for example, what's the challenge for Spokane? Our Wi-Fi in rural areas. People would move around and be outside the Wi-Fi alert capability, the bandwidth for the system. And that was a concern, but just things like that. Response times, like responding to Deer Park, City of Deer Park would be 45 minutes for an officer. And that's way too long for somebody to escape. So a lot of information came out, a lot of good reporting came out, but yeah, I think that would be good to hear more, to brief the group on that one. Mike, I can talk to you more about that.
Do you know who the Clark County best contact, or can you try to figure that out? Who could talk to us?
Yeah, Judd, I can figure it out easy. Yeah, we had, because they had the pilot program, and they're the only ones that had the pilot program. That was it. Yeah, they briefed in detail. It was their probation officers that did the detail analysis and kind of ran the pilot program.
Okay.
And then the sheriff's office. So
Yeah, Tim, could you include that link in the, you were talking about to find a report? In the
yeah,
chat?
let me, I'll get back with you and Rebecca on that one.
Okay, or send it by email to Rebecca and I, and then we'll work with Tim, your Judge Beggs, to see what we come up with. Okay, anything else? Okay, very productive meeting. I want to continue on these meetings to have someone visiting with a topic like judges suggesting, maybe from Clark County. There's some other ideas that you guys have to kind of, to kind of educate the group, as well as give us something to ponder for the Spokane area. So I like this forum. If you guys, have other suggestions, we'll take it. But I like bringing in speakers, to talk about these various things and going from there. So, all right. Well, if you don't have any more, then I will adjourn the meeting. You guys have a good 7 minutes of your lunch because that's all that's left. And I will see you guys on the next meeting. Take care.